my name is Nabil Azam. I'm a Microsoft EMEA TSE. I mainly cover server business for this same region, and I'm fully dedicated to Dell EMC's account. Today, we're going to talk about the advantages of OEM pre-installed licenses that comes with Dell EMC servers, and what are the different license types along with what is new in Windows Server 2019. So, why Dell EMC? We all know that Dell EMC has the #1 server portfolio and is the leader across this business. It comes with a bunch of additional services such as Pro Support and Pro Deployment, which can help you either deploy your solution if you're not comfortable deploying it and configuring it, or can help you with your support after point of sale. So this can be either for your hardware or your operating system. So you have one single point of contact for your support. Another advantage of Dell EMC, which is Dell Financial Services. So this is a solution or service that helps you buy your whole IT infrastructure without having any concern about the budget or the cost of that same solution, since you don't have to pay upfront for your whole solution that you're going to buy, but you can have monthly payments and save up your budget that you have for your IT infrastructure, and you can invest that budget elsewhere since you're only paying monthly payments and not upfront and one-shot payment at the beginning. Why Microsoft? Microsoft has 75% of the install base of servers worldwide, so this is a pretty consistent number and showcases that Microsoft is the leader across the server business operating system-wise. With Windows Server 2019, we have brought a lot of enhancements and new features that are divided through those 4 pillars. So we're talking about security, hybrid, faster innovation with applications, and unprecedented hyper-converged infrastructure. Of course, Windows Server 2019 is the operating system that bridges on-premise and cloud. So we are more connected to Azure services, for instance, through different features that I will be talking about on the next slides. So in order to sum up those Windows Server new features, we can talk about the first one, which is Windows Admin Center. So this is a standalone application and has a web user interface. It allows you to monitor and manage your IT infrastructure, and it lets you connect to Azure services, as I mentioned, more easily with a few clicks and with one single platform. The security capabilities have been enhanced with Windows Advanced Threat Protection, which is a suite of applications that allow you to cover and protect your IT infrastructure, be it for PCs or your servers, in real time. And this is on a subscription or monthly payment base. Unprecedented hyper-converged infrastructure. So this is the feature that we call Storage Space Direct or Azure Stack HCI. And this is a software-defined storage solution that allows you to have high storage resiliency without having to invest a lot of money, since you don't have to pay for additional software in order to have your HCI cluster, since S2D or Storage Space Direct is included in Data Center Edition as a feature. There are several ways to purchase Microsoft licenses across the market. We will be talking about 3 of them on this slide. So we have volume licenses, COEM, and OEM. So volume licenses, or VL, are digital licenses. They are not pre-installed, obviously, and the way you can get them is that you purchase your license, then you receive a mail from Microsoft stating some credentials that give you access to a platform called VLSC, which stands for Volume Licensing Service Center. And on that same platform, which is basically a website, it lets you download the ISO image of your Microsoft product along with the Microsoft product key. Of course, you have the possibility to download, the downgrade versions or earlier versions of that same Microsoft product. It can generally go down to N-2 version, and same thing goes for that N-2. You can download the ISO image with the licensed product key of that old or previous version. Next is COEM, which stands for Commercial Original Equipment Manufacturer. So those are licenses that stand at a distribution level, and they have, first of all, they are physical licenses, which means this is a box that contains the DVD and the licensed product key, that is a sticker. Second thing, it doesn't have any downgrade rights, and it doesn't have any kind of support since you're buying it from your distributor. Price-wise, volume licenses are the most expensive licenses. COEM stand at the second position, and OEM are the cheapest one. So moving to the OEM licenses, it stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. Those, again, are physical licenses, just like COEM. So you have your DVD and your license key. There is a sticker glued to your server. The way that you receive them, they are pre-installed, so you don't have and go through that installation phase and driver installation. They are pre-tested and pre-configured by the manufacturer, which means Dell EMC has done all of the tests, driver-wise and compatibility-wise, between hardware and OS, and you're certified that you will not have any kind of issue of those two parts, so hardware and OS. Of course, they are supported by Dell EMC, and they are Dell EMC branded as well. So they come pre-installed, as I mentioned, and whenever you have any kind of issue after the point of sale, so be it for your hardware or your OS, you have one single point of contact, which is Dell EMC Technical Support, that can help you for those both queries. We have the same downgrade rights as VL, so we're still talking about the N-2 version again. So same downgrade rights apply to volume licenses and OEM as well. Moving on to the part of why OEM, and more precisely why Dell EMC OEM licenses. We've talked about the three advantages that are the price, so you can save up to 25% compared to a volume license whenever you're buying a pre-installed license. You can save time as well, since we are talking about a pre-installed license compared to a naked server where you have to go through the installation of your OS, of your drivers, of your features or roles that you have to enable of your Windows server. So all of those are steps that consume time and money as well for the people that are going to do that maintenance or installation and configuration. Of course, the deployment, again, is quite easier for OEM licenses than for VL, because, again, you are good to go. It comes pre-installed from factory. It has all the drivers installed, so you can start configuring your server directly and start your business activity. Those two following slides, we can see that the steps or number of steps is quite low between a pre-installed license and a volume license. So we're talking about 5 steps for a pre-installed, which basically are configuring your roles, and we are talking about 38 steps and 20 minutes of time that you have to go through with a naked server. So it can go from powering on your server, setting up your drivers, for example, installing them, installing your hypervisor, installing your features and roles that you are going to use. So all of this gathered consumes a lot of time, especially when we are talking about big quantities. So here I've talked about 5 minutes and 20 minutes approximately for OEM and volume license. Whenever we are talking about 10 or 100 servers, we are talking about hours and hours that you can save whenever you go with pre-installed servers, and avoiding to have a naked server and going through all of the installation and configuration by yourself. So ROC licenses are a variant of OEM licenses. It stands for Reseller Option Kit. So those licenses have been created and added in order to answer the channel and distribution need, which means that if you're a distributor, you can't afford to stock fixed configuration. This means that you can't have, for example, PowerEdge R740 with Data Center Edition. Then the partner comes, he is interested into that same PowerEdge model, but he doesn't want Data Center, but wants standard instead of it. So in order to avoid those fixed configuration, Dell EMC and Microsoft has granted this flexibility to the distributor in order to stock hardware and OS separately and attach on demand. So the life cycle, or how it works, is that distributor buys from Dell EMC's factory the ROC licenses apart and the hardware apart. Then the partner comes, asks for a specific configuration, so our R740 XD and a Data Center Edition. Distributor drops the ROC licenses, so the DVD and the license key, into the server box, ships it to the partner. Then the partner does the installation of the OS, the enablement of features and configuration of the solution before shipping it to the end customer. So in most of cases, for the end customer, the scenario is quite the same between OEM and ROC. So both come pre-installed. The only difference is that OEM, of course, comes pre-installed from factory, and ROC comes pre-installed by the partner and configured by him. Advantage-wise, we are talking about the same advantage as OEM. So, of course, the pre-installation is not done the same way from factory and from partner, but all of the remaining advantages are the same. So the price is still the most interesting one on the market. It is pre-tested and certified by Dell EMC, which means that inside of the ROC DVD, you can find the drivers and install your whole OS without any compatibility issues. So to sum it up, OEM compared to VL, OEM licenses bring the price that is really interesting. So we're talking about the cheapest way to get a Microsoft license across the market. They come pre-installed from factory, from Dell EMC's factory more precisely, and they are pre-tested and certified by the manufacturer, which means that you won't have any compatibility issues or any driver issues. The other thing, which is you have one single solution or one single support contact, which is the Dell EMC technical support. So if a customer has any kind of query, be it for OS or hardware, they will have one single point of contact. This will avoid them having to talk to different counterparts. For downgrade rights, they are the same across OEM and VL. So we're talking about N-2 version. And the only limitation that OEM licenses have is that they are tied to the hardware. This means that if you buy a pre-installed Windows Server on your PowerEdge model, you can't uninstall it and install it elsewhere. There is, however, a workaround for that, and there are two techniques. The first one, which is add software assurance to your OS, or OEM license, and with that you can gain license mobility, or the other solution, which relies on data center edition only. This will bring you to the SKU of data center that comes with reassignment rights. On the other hand, volume licenses are the most expensive way to get a Microsoft license on the market. They are digital, which means that you receive a mail from Microsoft giving you access to a platform called VLSC, Volume Licensing Service Center. This is basically a website where you can download the ISO image of the product you bought, the Microsoft product you bought, and the Microsoft license key as well. You can download as well the N-2 versions from that same platform for both ISO image and the licensed product key. Downgrade rights are N-2, as I mentioned, for OEM and VL, and license mobility is granted by default for volume licenses. Of course, there is what we call a grace period, where if you move your license from server A to B, you have to wait 90 days before moving it back to server A again. Moving on to the different editions of Windows Server, more in depth, and the licensing of Windows Server in general. So Windows Server has 3 editions that start from Essentials, Standard, and Data Center. So Essentials is your low entry edition, and it is meant for a single server company. The reason why, first of all, it has a 25 user limitation as a maximum, or 50 devices, and it cannot be joined to a domain. It has to be the controller of your domain, and you can join that Essentials server as a read-only or as a member to your Active Directory. It doesn't have any virtualization rights, and whenever you move to standard license, which is more complete than your Essentials edition, it is unlimited user-wise and device-wise. Of course, you have to buy a CAL for each user or device connecting to the domain of the company. We will talk about CALs in the next chapter. The next point, which is virtualization rights. So standard allows you to have virtualization rights. However, it is limited, which means that each standard license gives you the right to create up to 2 virtual machines. Of course, you can stack standard licenses in order to gain more and more virtualization machines to activate and to create. When we move to Data Center Edition, it is more complete again than Essential and Standard because, first of all, the user limitation is not applied, just like Standard Edition. So you have to buy a CAL for each user or device that is connected to your company. And for virtualization rights, it is unlimited compared to Standard. So for one license or with one license of Data Center Edition, you can create as many VMs as your hardware allows. So it is unlimited. Feature-wise, we are talking about premium features that are existent only on Data Center and not available on Standard. We are talking about shielded virtual machines, which is an encryption method that allows you to encrypt through BitLocker your virtual disk of your VM and deny any third-party access to that virtual disk. The host guardian service is the role capable or responsible of creating that encryption method for your virtual disk. Later on, we can speak about storage solutions or software-defined storage solution, which are Storage Space Direct, which is your HCI solution, and Storage Replica, which is your replication method for both synchronous or asynchronous replication. And then we can talk about SDN, which stands for software-defined networking, And this is a suite of features that allows you to have, for example, virtual load balancer, virtual switch, and virtual gateway. The licensing of Windows Server 2019 follows the same rules of licensing as Windows Server 2016. So the switch have been made from Windows Server 2012 and onwards, which has switched from CPU-based licensing to core-based licensing. So in Windows Server 2016 and 2019, we are talking about core-based licensing, and the rules are simple to follow. First one, which is kind of obvious, all of the physical cores have to be licensed in order to be compliant. This rule can be avoided with OEM licenses, more specifically, where you can choose to disable cores in order to not have to license them or have to pay for them. The second rule, so first one, to be compliant, all physical cores have to be licensed. Of course, there is an exception for OEM where you can disable cores. The next rule, which is you can have minimum 8 cores per CPU and at the same time, minimum 16 cores per server. So those are the 3 rules. I repeat them. All physical cores must be licensed, with the exception of OEM, where you can disable some cores and not have to license them. Second rule, minimum 8 cores per CPU. And third rule, minimum 16 cores per server. So to give you a quick example, if you have a server that has one single CPU of 8 cores, so the first rule is applied, which is minimum 8 cores per CPU, but the second one, which is minimum of 16 cores, is not applied. So at that time, we will have to license 16 cores for that server. In order to make things simple, if you have a server that has 16 cores or less, you license 16 cores. If you have a server that has more than 16 cores, you put 16 cores as a base license and then add additional cores on top of that. So for a server of 20 cores, you will put a 16 cores base license and add 2 cores times 2, which gives you 4, and a total of 20 cores. So the rule of all physical cores must be licensed to be compliant is true. Moving to CALs, or client access licenses. As I explained earlier on, for standard and data center edition, there is a need to buy a CAL for every user or device that is connecting to the domain of the company. We are talking about the domain and not the server. So if a company has 3 servers and 50 employees, they will only have to buy 50 user CALs instead of buying 50 user CALs for each server of those 3. So we're talking about the whole domain and not one server of your company. So those CALs are mandatory for every user and device connecting to the company. And then we have a second type of CALs, which is RDS CALs. This stands for Remote Desktop Services. So they are used on top and in addition to the Windows Server CALs in scenarios where you have VDI, so Virtual Desktop Infrastructure, or remote access, for example, to internal business application if you're a field sales rep and connection from outside of the domain of the company. There are 2 subcategories, as you may have guessed, for Windows Server CALs and RDS CALs, which are user and device CALs. So user CAL gives the access to one user or one employee to connect to the domain of the company through multiple devices. This can be your laptop, your PC, your desktop PC, for example, your smartphone, your tablet, etc., etc. And the device CAL is the opposite. It's giving access to multiple users to connect to the domain through one single and same device. The example I give all the time to know when to choose between user and device CALs is a call center that has 100 employees and 50 devices. So those 100 employees are working, half of them are working during the day shift and the other half on the night shift. So at the end, this call center only has 50 devices and 100 employees. Instead of having to buy 100 user CALs, it is more cost efficient to go with 50 device CALs. As you can see on that slide, CALs are downgradable but not upgradable. What I mean by that is that if you have a Windows Server 2016 CAL and you are migrating your OS towards 2019, those 2016 CALs will not work with your new version. So this is what I mean by not upgradable. It means that you can choose your CAL with a newer version of operating system. But the opposite is true, which means that if you have right now a Windows Server 2019 CAL, and you want to run it on a Windows Server 2016 or 2012 R2, you can do that without any issue. But the opposite, as I mentioned, so upgrading or using your CAL for a newer version of operating system is not allowed. There is a huge opportunity, as I explained, for CALs right now because customers that used to have Windows Server 2016 and Windows Server 2016 CALs if they upgrade right now towards 2019, they will need to buy new cards as well. So this is the opportunity we have right now whenever a customer is migrating. And speaking about migration, Windows Server 2008 is going on end of support next January 14. So 14 January to be more precise, 2020. And this means that after this date, all of the customers that are still running those instances of Windows Server 2008 will not be covered by Microsoft. So what I mean by that is that there will not be any more security patches or Microsoft updates for those operating systems that are end of support. So for instance, Windows Server 2008. And there will be another issue, which is credit card payment companies will stop working with customers that are running end of support operating systems. The reason why is that there are compliance rules behind that say that you can't run an end of support operating system, and the reason again behind that is simple, because you are not covered anymore by the producer or developer of this OS, which is Microsoft. There is a missed opportunity whenever we're talking about end of support, because quite a lot of customers tend to not migrate at or before the end of support date because of some compatibility issues. This is the main reason of all of the scenarios. But whenever they are not, or they're choosing to not migrate, they are investing on those old infrastructure or old servers and old OS. They're investing on firewall solutions or antiviruses. So all of those security solutions come with a price, and mainly they are injected on an old infrastructure. Meanwhile, they could use that same budget into a new infrastructure, so new hardware and new OS. So for instance, new Power Edge model with Windows Server 2019, and it will give them more productivity, more security. So we're talking about a 10 years old operating system. I'll let you imagine how many inventions on the IT world gets created each 1, 2, or 3 years. So right now we are not even talking about this small period, but about 10 years. So we are talking about new security features, new productivity features. All of this gathered, or all of those features gathered, will bring more revenue to the company and justify that investment that they're doing on that new infrastructure. My name is Nabil. Thank you for watching this webcast.